My ex-fiance, a 44-year-old male, cheated on me 20 years ago. I am a 44, and I'm contemplating going out to dinner with him to catch up. I apologize if this is a lengthy message. I've been pondering it with pros and cons on a burner account for obvious reasons since my main account is my business account. A bit of backstory: when I first met Mark, fake name, back in junior year of high school, my parents were going through a rough divorce. My mother had an affair and essentially abandoned me, so I moved to a new state to live with my father. Due to this experience, I developed a close bond with my father. At that time, I was struggling emotionally, and my grades suffered. Mark, a troublemaker and bully, was someone I quickly became acquainted with, but I avoided him as much as possible. However, he cornered me one day, calling me names, and in a moment of built-up emotions, I punched him, leading to a one-sided fight. Looking back, he was much larger than me, but he never retaliated. After the incident, Mark underwent a complete personality change. He stopped bullying others, apologized, and started showing affection towards me, leaving love letters and following me everywhere. Eventually, I confronted him, and he revealed that he wanted to be a better person for me and liked me. This marked the beginning of something between us. I helped him with his studies, and we developed a close friendship. Over time, we started dating, and Mark's grades improved significantly. He worked hard to apply to the same college as me, and we eventually got engaged. During college, we moved in together and had an amazing couple of years. Mark was sweet, caring, and kind. He made me incredibly happy. We faced some minor issues like small fights, money problems, and jealousy, but nothing we couldn't overcome. However, as we entered the real world, the problems escalated. We also encountered fertility issues when trying for a baby, which strained our relationship. The breaking point came when Mark struggled to find a job after college, leading to financial difficulties. I became the main provider, causing stress and triggering his insecurities. In essence, our relationship faced challenges, and despite our efforts, we were unable to navigate through them successfully. Considering the history and the infidelity that occurred 20 years ago, I am now contemplating whether going out to dinner with him is a good idea or not. I guess some info: his parents are ridiculously wealthy. His father owns a construction company, and he's never had to struggle for things before. When he moved out, he was determined to make it on his own, despite his father offering him a job at his company. This caused further arguments because I was upset that he was so prideful that he'd rather suffer than work for his dad. He, on the other hand, was upset that I wasn't supportive of his decision because he didn't get along with his dad at the time. It all came to a head when he had a pretty explosive argument, wanted to stay with my dad after packing my bags, got cold feet after a day, and missed him. I came home to find him shirtless, hugging a woman on our couch. The blow-up was, as you can imagine, intense. I cried and yelled at him. He kept saying, "Please, it's not what it looks like," but when I asked for more information, he just stuttered and couldn't elaborate. I called off the engagement, moved back to my father's place, and cut contact. He reached out a couple of times, apologizing for cheating on me and begging for another chance, but I just physically couldn't, especially after what I saw my father go through. Cheating was a hard boundary for me. I nursed my hurt feelings for a couple of months, and it became too much for me. One time when he sent me a letter, I couldn't bring myself to read it. So, I got my job to transfer me out of state, moved, made my dad promise not to tell Mark where I was, and moved on with my life. Well, that's basically it. I ended up marrying my ex-husband when I was 34. We got divorced when I was 39 because he was having an affair with his coworker. I have many colorful words for this man, and he left me when she got pregnant. They're married now and very unhappy. The baby wasn't even his, so I guess small victories. Anyway, my life has improved a lot since Mark and I split. I genuinely believe what happened was for the best, although I wish it ended on good terms. We were both young and needed to grow as individuals. I went back to college for a culinary degree, started my own catering company, and am now very happy with my life and my cats. My original degree was in accounting, and I realized how much I hated it shortly after I left my new job. So, I was back in my original state for a wedding that I was hired to cater for this specific day. Yesterday was a vacation day, so I told my team to go and have fun. They went out for drinks, but I opted out and decided to take a stroll down memory lane. As I was walking, I heard someone shout my name, followed by some loud car honks. I turned around and saw a man running up to me. It took me a few seconds to process who it was. He's aged a bit, and he was very clearly out of breath. Honestly, it felt like I was back in school with him. My heart fluttered, and his ears did that thing they always do when they turn red. He was talking to me, and I couldn't stop staring at him. It's winter, so it's cold, and I just couldn't stop staring at him. He asked the pleasantries, how I was doing, saying I looked good, and that he missed me, all that jazz. We talked for a bit longer, and he asked if I was married. I explained that I was divorced and asked him the same question. He said that he never married and has been single for a long time. I asked how things have been in general, and he explained that he now runs his father's construction company. I was happy for him, gave him my congratulations, and then he asked me out for dinner to catch up. I said yes because, truthfully, I'd like to know what has happened in his life since I left. We exchanged numbers and had a hug goodbye. I can't even explain how much I missed hugging him. Everything just felt perfect. So why am I on here for advice when I so clearly want to meet him for dinner? Well, I talked to some of my girlfriends, and they were appalled that I'd even considered seeing an ex who cheated. It's just dinner, so I don't think it's a big deal, but they were adamant that it was a bad idea, and it started to make me think. Also, I kind of want to go so we could talk about what happened back then. We never really sat down and talked about his infidelity, and I can't lie that I'm a bit curious. Besides that, it's been 20-ish years, and I've moved on. I've lived my life, and I'm happy. He was someone I cared about deeply, and it'd be nice to have him back in my life as a friend. I'm not expecting anything, so surely it won't be a big deal if I go. Update. Hi, I'm back after our dinner. A lot of people asked for an update, which I'm quite flattered about. I didn't think my dilemma was that important, but I'm back. Short story, dinner was great. It was amazing to talk to him again, and even though we touched on some emotional topics, it felt good being able to show that emotional connection we shared. Long story, we talked about a lot of things. Neither of us really wanted it to end. I didn't think this man remembered the restaurant we had our first date at and took me there. The restaurant no longer exists, but the building still does, and it's a different chain now. The food left much to be desired, but it felt like a blast from the past and was so heartwarming. A bit of backstory on our first date as semi-adults, he came dressed in a suit despite the restaurant being low-key, slicked back hair, and some flowers. Remember how much we laughed because I was just wearing casual clothes and we looked like completely different vibes? Well, he showed up today in another suit with slicked back hair that is way out of style and flowers, just like back then. I felt all warm, and I teased him for going back to the past. I made a comment about how he was missing his earring. He had a horrendous dangle earring back in the day because it was cool, and he smiled and took it out of his pocket. He couldn't put it on because his ear has since closed up, but he brought it because he wanted to complete the look, so he just held it. We went through some small talk about how life had been and any major events. I was sad to hear that his father had passed away in 2015. I wasn't exactly close to him, but but it was still disheartening. They repaired their relationship before he passed, which is good at least. I asked about any partners, kind of nosy. How come you never married? We kind of went on to a more emotional side of things. He said that he tried, that he dated after we split, but it never worked out long enough to be long-term. He said that he had been single for a couple of years now and was just content on remaining like that, as he didn't think he'd find someone he'd connect to like he did with me, smooth talker. He asked me about my marriage, the gory details. I didn't mind telling him since I find the whole thing a learning experience now. He was sympathetic and then laughed when I joked about it, so I'm sure he knows I'm not hung up on it. I used this to kind of propel myself into what I wanted to ask, and that was about what happened back then. He smiled and said that he had been waiting to talk about it and that he was happy to finally air it all out. In basic terms, after our argument that day, everything felt like too much. The pretty standard issues that I had already known about. He was embarrassed, felt like a failure, and was too prideful to talk about it with me, so resentment built up, and he went out to drink. That's where he met the lovely lady. They talked for a bit and flirted, which led him to drunkenly bringing her home. He got a bit shy saying this part, but I guess it's just because he's embarrassed. Anyway, they were making out as they got in. She had started unbuttoning his shirt when he saw a picture of us together next to the couch. It was a trip we took to Seattle, and it was hell, like no exaggeration. Everything that went wrong could have, but that's a story for another time. Anyway, he said that when he saw me, he was just hit with this massive sober moment, and he pulled away. He confessed that he had a fiance and that he was just going through it. He ended up opening up and venting to her and crying, which is when I walked in and saw them embracing. Honestly, it could be a lie. It could very well be some long-term trickle truth thing, but I just don't see the reason. Even if he was having an entire affair, I've gotten over it now, so it wouldn't have made much difference. But at least I know who she is now, because admittedly, it had been bugging me that I didn't recognize her at all. He apologized again. He said that he should have told me the full truth back then instead of hiding it, that in his opinion, his infidelity was more than just a kiss because he had the intention of doing it when he met her at the bar. So he couldn't blame it on a drunken decision because he had plenty of time between the flirting and bringing her home. He said that he also felt despite how it ended. It was ultimately the best outcome for the relationship at the time because he needed to grow as a person and he was too ashamed to let me see him during that time. The time after when he tried to win me back, he was still in the I don't need change phase and kept sending letters. Once my father told him I left to another state, this was when he got into drinking heavily. I got a bit emotional as he was talking about this because it hurt to hear the state he was in while I left. His voice started breaking, so I held his hand, and we had a little moment. I screamed when I got to my hotel room, and I encouraged him to talk, so he let it out. It took about 1.5 years for him to snap out of his drinking funk and get better. He sobered up, started working for his dad, and made his way up. I'm honestly so proud of him in a weird way. I know I don't really have a right to, but I don't know. Something about hearing how much he changed to better himself for him made me really happy. We took a dodge from the sappy subjects, we ate our food, and talked. I can't even describe how good it felt. I was worried that it might be a bit awkward, but our conversation flowed so easily. It was like we never really parted. We made jokes. He still has this goofy grin whenever he's about to tell me a stupid joke, and it made my heart race slightly when I saw it. All in all, we had a good time. He drove me back to my hotel, asked how long I was staying, and I said a week. He asked if we could plan something else, and I said, of course. He got a bit blushy, red-tipped ears, and he asked if I would be willing to forgive him after all this time and possibly see if we could try again. I said that I forgave him a long time ago, and I wouldn't be against starting something again, but it would need to go slow because of our history. He got that goofy grin again, smiled, held my hand, and asked for a kiss, and I said yes. So much for going slow. I don't want to be overdramatic, but Jesus, we both had to take a minute to calm down after. It's like all of our emotions from the past just bottled out. So that's basically it. He waved me goodbye, and we messaged once he got home. We phoned for a bit before bed, and he gushed over how nice the day was. I'm doing my skincare now, but I had to come post this before bed. I took a lot of what you all said to heart, and you are right, life is too short for what-ifs. I don't want to regret not taking this chance, so I'm going to go for it. Thank you for all the comments. I'm not sure if there's a need to update after this, but if there is for whatever reason, then I will. I probably missed some things from what happened, but if I remember, I'll edit. Anyway, good night. My reaction. Wow, what a roller coaster of emotions. It's clear that you've had a lot to process, and it seems like your dinner with Mark opened up a floodgate of memories and feelings. It's commendable that both of you were able to have an honest conversation about the past and that you were able to find closure on some lingering questions. Firstly, it's wonderful to hear that you've built a fulfilling life for yourself. Your journey from a troubled relationship to pursuing your passion in culinary arts and finding happiness is truly inspiring. Regarding Mark, it's apparent that he's gone through significant personal growth over the years. His willingness to open up about his mistakes, take responsibility for them, and work on improving himself speaks volumes. It's heartening to see that he turned his life around after hitting rock bottom. As for your decision to give your relationship another chance, it's crucial to approach it with caution. Taking things slow, as you mentioned, is a wise choice given your shared history. It's great that you've forgiven him and are open to the possibility of rekindling a connection, but maintaining clear communication and setting boundaries will be key in navigating this new chapter. My advice would be to continue being true to yourself and your needs. Reflect on what you want from this renewed relationship and make sure your decisions align with your values and long-term goals. It's fantastic that you're embracing the opportunity for a second chance, but keep in mind the lessons you've learned from your past experiences. Life is indeed too short for what-ifs, and it seems like you're approaching this with a positive and open mindset. Wishing you the best of luck as you navigate this new chapter in your life. If you ever need more advice or just want to share updates, feel free to reach out.